Testing, testing, testing.
Yeah, we can hear you, Simon.
Okay. Mm. 114.
I can confirm that we are recording again and the live stream is back up and running.
Very good, well done. Got 120 participants back.
We haven't got Mary as yet.
Okay. When we restart, I think we'll want to go to the slide which has got the motion as amended in front of us, please.
Yeah, so I will stop my screen share, then Clyde will be able to share his screen.
Okay. Badge back on. The badge one way round. Won't do. Oops. Okay.
I think we've still got a couple of minutes yet. There's 131 participants now.
There's a comment
sorry,
from,
I'm not quite sure what's happened there.
There's a hand up. There's a hand up from Andrew Wilby. No reason why we can't have discussion before we started.
Okay.
If Andrew can unmute.
Andrew is now
unmuted,
able to talk.
Yeah, you're there, Andrew.
Simon, just a thought. I believe Michael Church might be the oldest dinosaur on the council now.
All right.
With about 49 years. It was always Harold Rogers' role to say thank you to everybody at the end. I think you should pick on him, unless he can find somebody older.
I've just heard what you said.
Oh, has he? Oh. Bugger.
Well, I think Derek is the father of the house, isn't he?
Is he? All right. Oh, yes.
Yeah, I don't think that Andrew's that far behind, though.
Oh, yes, I am.
We've got Jane Wilkinson wanting to make a comment. You may have a view.
Jane, you should now be able to unmute.
How many of you remember Harold Rogers in gold lame shirt? Some must. It was a sight to behold.
How many would want to? Obviously, Jane does.
Good heavens.
I didn't want to.
Right.
I was confronted with it full facial.
Did he have a medallion as well?
Okay. I think we're back on. I think we're 3:45. I think it's the witching hour. Michael was you got to just comment on that last point.
Yeah, Michael, you're free to unmute.
And then we'll carry on.
I think Ian Oram is the longest serving member. I don't know if he's here today.
He sent his apologies.
Bill Butler.
Well, you can fight over it at the end.
And then Derek and Alan Frost and John Baldwin, so there's a few.
Okay, well, you can fight over it. I'll okay.
It's definitely not Andrew Wilby.
Right. Okay, right. Well, we'll pick up where we left off, which was looking at the amended motion.
Clyde should be able to share his screen.
Yeah, we had clarified via the standing orders that the motion we don't have to vote on the amendment because the exact wording. The proposer can at their discretion change the wording. Address the meeting. Yeah, they can amend their motion or withdraw it entirely. And what they've done, according to 3.1, is amend their motion. So this is the one that we're going to vote on. But we are going to carry on with comments. We were having, what I'd suggested was that we have questions first on the motion, which should be addressed by Clyde and Linda, and then we'll have general comments, and then we'll move to voting on it. And so are there any, let me just open up participant list so I can see hands. we have the first comment coming in from Beverly Faber.
Beverly, you should be able to unmute now.
Can't hear from Beverly Faber.
Beverly's still muted.
We've got a screen share instead.
Yeah, we've got Clyde's screen, which is now gone.
Beverly, Beverly, do you want to?
Can you
speak?
hear me?
Yeah, we've got you. We've got you.
Okay, my question is, there's no minimum to this. I mean, the thing that comes to mind is that some group decided to suddenly leave their group and 2 people want to join a small group. Is there going to be some minimum?
Yeah, Clyde will definitely cover that one. Thank you.
Yes, well, thank you, Beverly, and that's a good question, and it's one that we thought very carefully about during the consultation phase, and we did originally consider putting in numerical limits on the number of members. Where we sort of concluded after the consultation was that it actually seemed to be better to put in admission criteria that related to the governance of a society, to make certain that a society is properly constituted, rather than just to focus on numerical limits. Because if, for example, the main entry criteria was a society that had, say, 25 members, there would be a danger that societies could kind of walk through the door, as it were, just on the basis of their numbers, even though they might not be properly governed, might not have a proper constitution, might not have officers, might not even have any safeguarding arrangements. So, and there might be a society with 20 members who might be very well constituted and well governed. So we felt that in response to the feedback we had from the consultation, it was actually much safer to put in clear admission criteria that focus on a way a society is governed and managed, rather than just the number of people they have or claim to have in their membership list.
Okay.
Now we are. Thank you very much. Now I'll come to Fred, but he may be about to say what I'm about to say. We are up against it. There is a rule or a standing order. We are any item cannot be debated for more than 30 minutes, and I think we were probably on 28 minutes when we stopped. So we are going to have to agree to extend this piece of business by another 30 minutes. Is that right, Mary?
Well, it's not necessarily by 30 minutes, but the meeting does need to agree to extend the debate.
Okay, I think we.
Well, if they want to. But
I think we probably do. I think we probably do need to do that. While we take a couple more questions, Colin, could you just set up a poll that the meeting agrees to extend the debate?
Yes, I certainly can.
And I'll take a question then from Fred Bow.
Thank you, Mr. President. Fred Bow, Essex Association. Right, a couple of points. One, there is seems to be no provision for automatically transitioning an existing affiliated society whose membership has declined to the point it is removed from affiliation, which is currently 50 for UK societies, for example. It would seem reasonable to me to allow them to automatically transition to this new category, but there's no provision for that. So as it stands, they write in and say, they write to the secretary and say, sorry, we've fallen below the lower threshold. We'd like to apply, and then they're out until the due consultation process has run its course. I can't see a good reason for not allowing them to automatically transition to smaller society status. That's one point. The other one was that you claim that alternative structures have been given proper consideration. Well, until 18 months ago, you had an obvious way of involving such societies until you abolished the decision H. So I don't see any evidence that you've considered whatever it is you've replaced decision H with, which we haven't been told about, of course, either.
Okay. Clyde, were you able to?
Yes, thank you,
comment on
Fred.
those 2 points?
Should I maybe kick off on that, and maybe Linda
2
can
points there.
add a few words on the question of an affiliated society that is, its membership is diminishing. I think you make a very good point. Although you may remember in that diagram that I showed you when I was doing the presentation, there is a kind of zone, there's a kind of buffer zone between 75 and 100 members, where a society is in a position to make a decision about what it prefers to do. So I've just, in talking to you, Fred, I've managed to get my screen share wrong. So I'll just go back to the right screen now. So in effect, a society, an affiliated society with declining membership, once its membership reaches 75, there's then quite a lot of time it has to make a decision about where it should go. If it feels that its membership is going to decline substantially below 75 and reach the point where it would no longer qualify for affiliation, which is at 50, which you quite rightly mention, it's got quite a lot of time to make a decision as to what it wants to do. And what most associations would do in those circumstances would be to decide to become a registered small society, make their application in the normal course of events, and they would then be approved as a registered small society well before the 50 membership came up, where they sort of fell over a cliff edge. So the idea is to provide effectively a range of membership between 50 and 100, where societies can decide if they are growing. There's a zone where they can make a calculated decision as to whether they choose to affiliate or whether they just want to stay as a small society. And if they're declining, likewise, there's a zone where they can make a planned decision as to whether they want to drop off completely or to transition to a registered small society. On the other question, I think you're referring to affinity groups. Or affinity affiliated, not affiliated
Alliances.
Alliances, beg your pardon, ringing alliances. I mean, we did consider that, although it's fair to say that the provisions for ringing alliances were very loose. And what we have here is something much more specific. It's much clearer. It gives small societies a clear view of what the criteria are for admission and what they will get in return for admission. It makes very clear that they will have the right to send a representative to speak and to take part at council meetings, to put in motions and so forth. So it allows them to take a much sort of fuller part in council life than was the position with the original Decision H.
Thank you, Clyde.
Richard, to say what societies would want to do. They might well want to stay as affiliated societies as long as they can, and only reluctantly fall below the 50 threshold. They may not know in time how much longer they've got. They shouldn't be forced to switch to a category just because they've got down to 52 members.
Would you like me to answer that?
Yes, if you want.
Yeah, I mean,
please,
basically, the whole structure is designed to put the power in the hands of the society as to what it wants to do. At the moment, there is a cliff edge. If a society goes down to 50, there's nowhere for it to go. Under the proposed scheme, once it goes down to 75, it has a choice, and its membership can decline for many months after it reaches 75, and that choice is still there for it to switch over and become a registered small society. So it can do that at any time between 75 and 50. So it gives the society a lot of flexibility in terms of what decision it makes and when it makes the decision.
You haven't explained why they shouldn't be allowed to automatically transition.
Would you like me to answer that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether Linda will have any comments.
No, thank you.
I think again, sort of what we have tried to do here, Fred, is to deliver a system that works in parallel with affiliation. And of course, if a society has an automatic right to become a registered small society if it's an affiliated society and its membership is declining, But of course, people might legitimately ask, why doesn't a registered small society whose membership is growing have an automatic right to affiliate?
Mm.
And it seemed from the consultation that we ran in July that there was a preference to keep the two classifications separate, so that in each direction of travel, whether your numbers are diminishing or your numbers are growing, yes, you do have to apply. But in the case of an affiliated society like East Grinstead, if their numbers decline and they feel that a registered small society is for them, I really can't see in the practical course of things that anyone on the executive or any member of the council would want to deny them the opportunity to become a registered small society.
No, I can't either.
Can I just add slightly? It's
Yes.
really just endorsing what Clyde said, and it is giving societies the choice of whether to become, rather than it being them just automatically transferring from one to the other for whatever reason, they are going to make a choice. And I think, you know, that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think they make a positive choice, don't they? I think we move on to the next question, which is from Richard Alton.
Oh, work this time. Richard Alton, Age Society College Youth. One question that sparks me on this is the perennial question of multi-representation. And I know over time I've lost one this year with college with Sherwood Youth de-affiliating. I'm only represented 4 times. It was 5. So, and obviously with the Singapore brand new society, that makes great sense. Is there any consideration going to be made when a UK based, as probably the biggest example, small society requests this, as to whether they're in effect already represented in some way or other?
Can I just say something
please.
about
Just go ahead, Linda.
that? Was one of my concerns initially, but the fact, and I'm about to lose my train of thought, but the fact that there are these sort of checks and balances in place, and one of the standing orders, I can't remember the exact wording, but something as not frustrating the activities of any other guild or association or small society, safeguards against that to some extent. And also, you know, obviously we're talking about in the future this reducing the size of the council or representation. All of that can be taken on board at that point, but there are smaller societies that do have very distinctive characters that are not, although members may be represented, most people are going to be represented because they live somewhere in an association, but there are other societies that do have their own distinctive characters which can be represented or should be represented on the council.
Yeah, yes, I think giving representation to the unrepresented is more important than the problem of having multiple representation that we already do have to a certain extent.
But if I can say, Richard, I think it's a very good question, and multiple representation has been a perennial issue, as you say, for the council right back to 1913, when the original decision was made to admit the Ladies' Guild, and that famous speech was made by a council member saying, well, really the Ladies' Guild shouldn't be admitted to the council because they were all members of their territorial associations and therefore were all represented by that means.
Yeah, okay. The next question is from Robert Lewis, who we know has views on this one.
Robert, you should be free to unmute.
Okay, sorry about that. Robert Lewis, Middlesex County Association. Clyde has repeatedly claimed that this motion does not disturb the existing system of affiliation. And I would just submit that that's actually not true, because this meeting that we've had today, which I think everybody would agree has been quite pressured in terms of who can speak when and how, and my goodness, haven't Clyde and Linda had a long shot at this compared to everybody else. But to get back to the point, yes, this is the one opportunity that we get in the year. This is the voting members to hold the executive to account. And We don't know how many small societies might apply to join. And I don't know if any serious work has been done on this, because a certain number of societies are actually listed in the diary who are not members of the currently affiliated to the council. But, you know, I reckon you could probably work up a list of likely candidates. But however many there are, you know, it could actually seriously impact on this one opportunity a year that voting members get to hold the executive to account. Now, one possibility is, I suppose, that in the course of a normal council meeting weekend, that the executive could have a separate meeting with people who represent small societies and are not entitled to vote. What I do resent immensely is that this is going to dilute the opportunity for us voting members to hold you, the executive, to account. And that really bothers me. And I think it should bother everybody else today. And I really think that hasn't been thought through.
Thank you. And I think members will take that into consideration when deciding how to vote on this. I personally disagree, but they will take into account. Thank you for making the point. Andrew Wilby is next up, followed by Tina Stocklin. Andrew's now ready to speak. Thank you.
Yeah,
yep.
Wilby Colleges. Couple of points really. One is just to, I've got a question for Clyde, but a point that people really ought to get into their heads about is this myth about multiple representation. We represent our societies. It's our societies that are affiliated to the council, and we represent them and their interests, so that if you belong to a number of different societies, as many of us do, each society activity gets represented, and that's quite right. So we ought to kill this myth that there's multiple representation of individuals, because that's not what the Constitution is all about. Look, my question to Clive is that, and because this might help members how they view this motion, I'm sure he's done his market research, and the question is, how many does he think we're talking about in terms of little societies that might want to affiliate? If he hasn't done the market research, will he just cover it up and pretend he has? Because otherwise it won't be helpful.
Yes. Clyde, not Clive, actually. Clyde.
Right.
Clyde.
Okay. I will try not to cover cover anything up. There is something that Jane Wilkinson alluded to a bit earlier on in the previous session, but I can talk about that later. Yeah, in terms of society showing interest, I mean, you're absolutely right, Andrew, that we have not done a degree of market research, to the nth degree on this. But I think there is potentially a kind of risk of paralysis by analysis here, in the sense that we do know that these societies exist. We're not quite certain of the number of them, in much the same way as we don't actually know the number of individual ringers out there. And that hasn't stopped us looking at some point to introduce a direct channel to allow them to connect with the council as well. What we do know is that even though the scheme hasn't been announced as yet, a number of small societies have come to us and indicated that they have an interest. Guild of Railway Ringers, the East Grinstead Guild, Birmingham University, Devon Monday Ringers, the Lilliputters Guild, and there are a couple more in terms of the Roving Ringers in Singapore who haven't come to us, but certainly some of their people close to those societies have said that that's something that they may look at. So that's, before this enhancement all this scheme is implemented. And as I said a bit earlier on, this is a choice. It's a free market here. I think it is very much up to the council to create an offer for all societies that makes it worthwhile making use of their council membership and actually convincing them that the council is an organisation that they want to be influential in, to connect with, and to have a role to play in.
Yes, I don't think it's not an overwhelming number. I would not expect there to be 30 or 40 small societies. I would expect some of the smaller university societies to join. I know of one specifically has asked. And youth groups, which are not always aligned with the territorial associations and aren't really represented. So I don't think it's a deluge, but I think those who want to will value it, and we will value their membership.
And the point has been made about university ringing, and obviously that's an area that Ian Ralston, talked about this morning. There are a number of university societies that used to be members of the council, used to be affiliated societies. Manchester is one, I think, that lost their affiliation through declining numbers, and this provides a way for them to reconnect.
Yeah, thank you. Tina Stockton.
Hi, Tina Steck from the Scottish Association. Sorry, was that really loud?
Yeah, you're fine. We'll sit further back.
I'm sitting really far back. I'm about a meter away. Okay, I just wanted to say, just to start off, that I agree with Linda Garton's comments 100%. Every point that she made, I think, is important. The issue of inclusion and bringing in small societies and being more open. I also think that the points being made on governance and focusing on societies, that may not be very large, but have good governance is also very important. Clyde, I think you're correct in saying that if you put this motion next year, it probably wouldn't be very different. But I do have some issues with this motion because I just don't think it goes far enough. And I don't think it is inclusive enough. We're offering half a membership, non-voting thing, and a much higher barriers to entry. If I'm a member of an association that has 75 members, I can just join the council. Whereas if I'm smaller, I have to provide, evidence that I actually exist as a society and blah, 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 and expectations of safeguarding, none of which is required of affiliated members. So my barrier for entrance is actually quite high. And then I don't even get to vote. I feel like this is half an offer to smaller societies. And I feel like actually we should be holding affiliated societies to the same standard and accept them in the same way. And I don't understand why we felt the need, whichever group put this together, felt the need to constrain themselves to not tackling all the membership categories. I mean, this is probably a sticking plaster because we're afraid to change everything. This feels like a very old council way of doing things, like let's fix this over here, but let's not change anything very fundamental for fear everything sort of gets all messed up. Why didn't we actually look at this a little bit more root and branch and make a meaningful change and in terms of governance and inclusion and approach it that way so that small societies weren't just second best, but actually were fully participatory in the council. So I'm afraid with great reluctance, I do not like this motion.
Okay.
I just,
Go on, Linda. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, yes, I take on board. Thank you, Tina, first of all, for what you said, first of all. But if I can just respond to the second part of what you said about not being inclusive enough, I think, and Clyde may correct me or Simon, is that smaller society, all of those things, the safeguarding and the constitution, we do take it for granted that the larger affiliated societies have those, and it may be something that we should look at. But I mean, the criteria for affiliation was set up a long time ago, and in the days when things like safeguarding weren't necessarily at the forefront as they are now. And also there is that, I think because a smaller society could be almost anything, there does need to be that slight, that sort of need for some sort of constitution. Otherwise, sort of me and my mates who go down the pub could say, yeah, come on, we'll join that. So there does need to be that sort of criteria of some sort, admissions criteria. And I agree with you that it may be time at some point to look at the criteria for affiliated societies too, but that may well come in under all these other discussions that are going to take place about representation and all the rest of it over the coming year.
That's right. Yeah.
Tina, if I could just say, sorry.
I think that's answered that question. I want to move on to the next one. Jim Crabtree.
Jim Crabtree, Sutherland, Nottingham. I think Tina may be right, but that doesn't mean I won't support the motion. I think it's a very well put together scheme, idea. and it's a good first step. We can improve on it over the coming years, but at least it's a start, because we can't be encouraging people to get together in groups at universities and all things like that, and then say, but by the way, you can't play with our ball. It's one step forward. We're behaving at the moment exactly in the way that caused Crag to come around, as if we don't want anyone involved, really. And we do want people involved, and we want them to have a say in it. So I'd just like to get on and vote on it and pass it through. I'd also like to say that one thing I think is very useful on an AGM, far more than holding to account the people who we vote in by large numbers, almost unanimously, almost always, we vote them into a position because we trust them. And I'd like us to support our exec and the work groups, rather than just the idea that we're only here to hold you to account. I think you're more valuable than that. You're doing a good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you. We'll take four more comments. I think we're getting all the views now. I don't want to start repeating ourselves. So if you think you've got a genuinely different point, please let's hear it. But if you're just repeating what's been said before, please think if we need to say it again. Peter Scott.
Mr. President, I'd just like to quickly cover 3 points. We seem to have drifted into the debate. I think that a really good motion here would have said, these are the societies which are actually interested in becoming part of us. We know who they are, and we should incorporate them within one organisation at this stage. There ought to be sort of a mutuality of regard between the affiliated societies and those who wish to join us. It should not be, as Tina's pointed out, it should not be that we control them or that they defer to us. There should be a new organisation which has those extra people as part of it, those extra ringers as part of it. That is along the lines of the radical reform which the council agreed as part of accepting the Crag report. It wanted the council to be different, and part of the difference is to include extra ringers in extra societies within it. Now, as to the size and the voting capacity, we can't on one side say there's no change to affiliated society's influence, and at the other side say small societies will have influence because they can send people along to the meeting. You have to have it one way or the other. It has to be a new joint enterprise going forward. And that new joint enterprise has to look at fitting with the new relationship with individual ringers, which those people who wrote the Crag report have persuaded the council to take on. Mr. President has been very honest about that proposal having been kicked into the long grass for 1 year, and it's now being put on the back burner, maybe. No, it's going to be pursued, he says, which is excellent, during the next year. But in doing that, we want the small societies to be an integral part of this new way of running things. And if I can say to Andrew Wilby, we would do well to look at how many ringers we are actually associating with. If I had had longer to talk to my friends during this consultation period, I perhaps could have found a reasoned amendment to bring the whole of this small societies issue in better with the idea of taking one lump of influence on the council with one ringer. If only ringers could say, I want this particular society to represent my views on the council and only count myself as a member of one society, then we would have a better idea of how many ringers we were relating to. And my mythical extra better amendment would have said that by incorporating us into a single organisation with one set of rules, we could allow a representation route, the automatic movement from one side of the barrier to the other. As Tina says, we don't need two types of member. We could do perfectly well with one. But as I started this debate thinking, oh, I can't possibly support this motion. Clyde gave me an hour of his time to talk about it. But I think I have now been persuaded it is a small step. It is better to take a small step. We have voted the executive in to run our business, and we ought to support them. So there you go. I will support you. It could be so much better. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. There are quite a lot of people now, and we didn't have the motion to extend. There are quite a lot of people now saying, let's just get on with this vote. And with apologies to those who have put their hand up, I am going to ask us to put this vote now. I think people are asking for us to do it. So please, could we have the motion in front of us again, and then we need the voting. So this is the motion. That's the council approves motion A on the agenda paper as modified by the amendments 1 and 2 below. I'll remind you, this is but it's a 2/3 majority needed to pass this, and we'll leave plenty of time for people to vote on this. Colin, when you're ready, if you could put us the poll.
Poll is on the screen now.
Thank you.
Colin, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can I just check that you've done whatever you had to do so that I can vote?
Yes, you should be able to vote.
Thank you.
How's it progressing, Colin?
Okay, so 90% of those present have voted.
Okay, let's give it another 15 seconds. Last 5 seconds, please. Okay, thank you. Colin, can we see the result of the poll, please? 76% are in favour of the motion. How many is that? Well, we actually, the percentage is more important. 100 people have supported it. I therefore declare that carried. Okay.
Sorry, could we just have the numbers again, Colin?
Those are the numbers.
Yeah, so 100 votes for, 28 votes against, and 4 abstentions.
Thank you. And Clyde, and Linda, I've seen firsthand how much work you've put into this. It's extraordinary. Thank you very much. We move on to the next item on the agenda, which is future meetings. Can we lose the previous screen share? Clyde, can you unscreen share, please?
Beg your pardon.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 18, which is future meetings. I'd ask the Deputy President to report on 2021.
Yes, thank you, Simon. Of course, this weekend we should have been enjoying the pleasures of Nottingham. This visit had to be postponed. We hope to visit Nottingham in 2021 for our annual meeting. We have a provisional booking at St Mary's Church in Nottingham for the meeting itself. The executive reluctantly decided not to arrange the roadshow element. We're very disappointed with that. It was a very successful start last year. This is a huge disappointment to us, but we have to be realistic. There is still no certainty what we will be able to do in 12 months' time. It is hoped that there will be the opportunity to have some practical sessions arranged in addition to the meeting. These would be for the benefit of non-members and be more of a training opportunities in the form of outreach. We hope that in future years we will be able to return to having the format of a roadshow to include more people. That's where we are at the moment.
Okay, thank you. And we have invitation. We don't have an invitation for 2022, do we? Although we have invitations from received from the Suffolk Guild that's been transferred to 2023. Is that because it was originally 2022, Mary? Not sure. Anyway,
sorry, I can't quite remember, but
No.
they've got an anniversary year coming up, and
Yeah,
2023 coincides better.
I had Bath and Wells in my mind, but anyway, 2023 we have an invitation from Suffolk. 2024 we have received an invitation from the Guild of Devonshire Ringers. 2022 we may just think, where haven't we been for a while, and have a chat. I've got a comment in from Jane Wilkinson, hand up.
Post hoc rather than proctor hoc. I was standing by with a speech all ready to go.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I was wondering, I put my hand up to ask you when we were going to change from questions to a formal for and against debate. It might not have made the slightest difference, but I do think, if I may say so, and I hope you'll forgive me, that we have missed out by not listening to people who wanted to speak on the other side. It's done now. I can only say how sorry I am, because I think we've missed an opportunity.
Okay, thank you, Jane. Yes, I think in fairness, I'd assume that for and against was all going to come in that discussion.
But I was hoping that, because you divided it to start with, forgive me, Mr. Chairman, you divided it into questions and people were going to be given information, which they duly were. And then I assumed that we would move to formal proposals and seconding and a reply from the proposer and things like that, which makes for an easier debate, and it also possibly gets us to a more accurate result. But thank you for your efforts. It's all been very good tempered so far, and I shall now go and scream quietly in a corner.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Jane. We move then on to item 19, which is any other business. Mary, I believe you have a little list.
I do have a little list. Thank you, President.
None of them will be missed.
I hope not. Right. First, I need to apologise to Beryl Norris because I missed her name off my list of long-serving members who stood down. I'd like to thank Fred for again typesetting the annual meeting papers into this rather attractive-looking booklet, and Colin Chapman for the image on the front cover. I don't know if people are trying to spot themselves in the pictures of last year's meeting. And then for the members, I do say this every year, but if you change your contact details, particularly your email address, do let us know. We are still not psychic. And if you can also check that your guild secretary or guild contact, whoever it is receiving the messages that go out on the society's mailing list, because we're not psychic if your society's secretary changes and fails to tell us and then just complains that they're getting stuff that they don't want anymore. We need to know who the person is, please. Now, for next year's meeting, the deadline for nominations and motions will again be exactly 6 weeks before the meeting. As Simon mentioned earlier, Fergus, as treasurer, will be completing the last year of Andy's term, which had been mandated by the transition motion adopted in 2018. So nominations will be required for treasurer and for 2 ordinary trustees, and as we do this every year, independent examiner or examiners, depending on whether we've managed to change the rules by then. As stated last year, again, all affiliation fees must be paid and membership numbers notified 6 weeks before the meeting, or you will not be able to speak or vote at the meeting. Now, obviously, it's easier for us to do that if the meeting takes place in person. And there was only one society which, in spite of the best efforts of its representative, did not actually notify its membership numbers this year. And of course, all affiliation fees have been paid. But do make sure that your guild secretaries and treasurers understand this and that they act on it. With luck, I might be doing a bit more ringing next year, and I won't be doing the chasing that Andy and I have done this year. It's up to guilds to ensure that they comply with the rules for which they voted. Thank you.
That's the end of your list, Mary.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Boring stuff.
That's fine, that's fine. I've got one item which is a thank you. It's to thank Colin Newman. When we asked Colin to to run the technical show. I don't think he expected quite what it was going to entail, and smoothly running it. As anyone who read my blog a week ago will know, I've got 2 lists. Colin, you've shot to the top of my beer, tea, and cake list. Next time I'll see you. Okay. Fergus, I am having a budget. Is there any other business? Was the senior member wanting to say anything? Do I remember from earlier? No. In that case, I declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much. Can we save the chat, Colin?
Yes, all of the chat, the Q&A, the video and the audio will all be recorded, and I will make it available in the next day or so once I've managed to format it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Take the badge off. I'll stay on till everyone's gone. It's polite, isn't it? It's the polite thing to do.
I could very easily just get rid of them with 2 mouse clicks if you like.
No, I think we let people drift away into the ether.
Do you want to put a message to all members about virtual pub later or something?
But I could do. I think yes, I might send a note out. Yes, Jane, you've put your hand up again.
I know the meeting's over, but 2 of the things that I was going to say. One was that the maximum number of members at a council meeting was in 1999, not 2009, and it was 220. For some reason, everything seems to have, all Tony Smith's stuff seems to have disappeared from the website.
Right. Okay.
I also tried to get the standing orders a couple of days ago from the website, and that was impossible. Mary very kindly made a perfectly adequate suggestion, which got me around that, but it didn't give me the up-to-date standing orders.
Right, because the standing orders you do get with, hang on, let's just think, 1, 2, 3 clicks. I think you get to standing orders, but you need to know where they are.
They weren't there.
Oh, they weren't there.
Went to,
I went there yesterday and printed them off. They might have been a blip.
You're the president.
Right,
if the president hasn't got the standing orders, we're in dead trouble.
Yes.
They weren't there that I could get. They shot past and disappeared. And somebody may have done something. The other thing I hope we think, well, I might perhaps get in touch with you separately if I may.
Yeah.
Because, and the other thing that I hope won't disappear is the fact that Linda was quite wrong about contact with the Church of England. Other people can, as well as an organised society, can talk to the Church of England.
Yes.
And I do think we need to be certain about that.
Okay, yes.
For what it's worth.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah.
Goodbye, safe journey home.
Thank you.
Well, at least that's something we don't have to do, isn't it? We don't all have to jump into a car and travel anywhere.
That was the point I was making.
Yes.
Or trying to.
Yeah. Okay. What are we down to? 24.
Yeah.
24.
Interesting to note is the number of attenders. I think we only lost 2 between the first meeting and the second.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then it went. I mean, there were some messages about apologies because people had to go, but
yeah.
My Barry, Carol, Derek.
Some of these people probably don't know how to stop a meeting.
Well, I think we're done. I think as long as Colin, as long as you've got the chat.
Yeah, it will all be saved. I will circulate the data. It's very raw, So
Okay.
it takes quite a lot of
Okay,
reading.
fine. Okay, let's turn it off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks very
Thank
much,
you.
Simon and
Yeah,
Colin.
thank you, Colin.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Cheers,
Very
guys.
much.
Bye bye.
Thank you.